Not Quite Meant to Be by Genevieve Cruiser, narrated by Rosalie Fox. Chapter 3. A Proposal. Ilana. "Mackenzie!" I yelled for what felt like the millionth time, banging on her door. "Get up and get dressed, now. We're leaving in an hour, so don't faff about too much." No response came from the other side of the door, but I was fed up with trying. I went downstairs, downed my fourth cup of coffee, and filled a flask with more to take along on my morning chores. I fed everyone that needed feeding, finding a small amount of satisfaction in the knowledge that I had packed lunch for both Mackenzie and me. She wouldn't have any cause to grumble about starvation tonight. Blazing Guns, born name Blaze, stuck his head over the pasture fence and whinnied a greeting as I approached with a bale and a bucket of feed. The early morning sun lit the gold in his coat. He was a dun quarter horse, bred out of generations of World Show champions in both pleasure and ranch riding. His pedigree boasted a long list of Hall of Fame names. A stint with the wrong trainer had wrecked him for the show ring forever, mentally as much as physically. I had bought him for next to nothing at an auction 5 years ago because, despite the utter despair in his eyes, he held his head high and stared right at everyone walking past him as if saying, "Yes, I am. What exactly are you staring at?" His conformation was excellent, and I had figured if I couldn't get him riding sound again, he could at least breed a few gorgeous foals. It had taken 2 years of intensive rehab. I had had to start his training from the very beginning again, painstakingly slowly, but he had eventually gotten to that point where he was rideable, and he hadn't slacked off on the producing gorgeous foals front either. He would never show again. I refused to put him through that, but he was perfectly happy to check fences and gallop across the trails with me. I set down his hay and feed, rubbing the white diamond on his forehead as he started munching contentedly. Suddenly he froze, lifted his head, and let out an ear-splitting whinny. "There are no mares within half a mile of you, silly boy. I'll bring you one this afternoon, I promise." Then I heard what he had, approaching hoofbeats. Who would be here on horseback just past dawn? I got my answer a moment later. A sorrel mare burst over the hill, her striped hooves kicking up a sandstorm. At a soft word from her rider, Missy tucked her hindquarters and slid the last 10 feet that separated us, coming to a stop with her nose an inch away from my right shoulder. I took an involuntary step back, spilling coffee all over myself in the process and cursing under my breath. It was one thing to know that Missy was well trained, to admire her from a distance. It was quite another to have her skills displayed at such a close range. "Good morning, kitten." Colton patted her neck, looking pleased as pie. "What are you doing here?" I snapped, annoyed with myself for reacting as if I had never seen a horse before. "I don't need your help." "Maybe not, but I need yours." I planted one hand on my hip and looked up at him expectantly. "I'm looking for refuge, truth be told." "Oh no. Did your girlfriends find out about each other?" I made no attempt to disguise the sarcasm in my words. He laughed. It was a deep, warm sound that had the corners of my mouth lifting in response, without any consent from me. "It's their problem if they did. I haven't made any of them any promises. No, actually, I'm hiding from my mother." I shook my head determinedly. "I can't help you. Your mother's a determined woman. If she shows up here with a shotgun, I'd like to be able to tell her, with a clean conscience, that I don't know where you went nor what you did." "I haven't done anything," he protested. "She's just been asking me some uncomfortable questions about my, shall we call them, nightly endeavors. She offered to start knitting baby grows." I choked on a mouthful of coffee, and he helpfully pounded me on the back from his perch in Missy's saddle. "I could picture Jamie firing off these intimate questions as if asking him whether he had done his homework. Nothing embarrassed her. She was the kind of person that you could tell anything and she never hesitated to say exactly what was on her mind. I could see how having her as a mom could get awkward at times, though. Especially if you were Colton Johnson, who was pretty much known as the local stud. You can't hide out here forever, you know? Yes, but I thought I could give you a hand with the morning's feeding and such, and hopefully, by the time I get home, the twins will have set the barn on fire again or something, and I'll be off the hook. I thought of all the hay bales I still needed to drag around in order to make the dinner run easier tonight, and shrugged. I've already fed everyone this morning, but if you'll help me set out their dinner, you can stay. He smiled, obviously relieved. I appreciate it from the depths of my heart. I snorted. You don't have a heart, Johnson. He hit the ground in one smooth motion, his eyes full of mischief, even though the rest of his expression remained neutral. No. Before I had a chance to dodge, he had taken firm hold of my hand and pressed it to his chest where the organ, whose existence I had just questioned, beat defiantly. My own heart did a series of funny little flips as my brain registered the fact that I was standing 5 inches away from Colton Johnson with my hand on his chest. His eyes held mine, and somewhere deep within them, I thought I saw a flash of the same realization. Flustered, I jumped back, scooping up Blaze's empty bucket just so I wouldn't have to look at Colton. When I felt sure my face wouldn't betray me, I turned back to him. What I meant to say was, you've never done anything out of the kindness of your heart. He blinked, and for a moment I wondered whether he was offended, but a second later he grinned and the moment passed. You might just be right about that. Can I pop Missy in a paddock for a bit? We might want to leave her in a stall to avoid an all-out war between the mares. She's too pretty to be beaten up and bruised. She and that man of yours would have an amazing foal, you know. He appraised Blaze, who obligingly stuck his nose over the fence and gave Missy a thorough sniff. Back off, you over-eager pervert, Colton chided, backing Missy up a few steps. That wasn't an invitation yet. I'm serious, though, he said, turning his attention back to me. His eyes were bright with the intrigued speculation that the born and bred horseman could never quite swear off, and I knew then that he shared in the ever-persistent dream that stallion and mare could total every unachieved hope and dream he had ever had. I don't know. I've never put him with any other mare than a pure quarter horse. I'm not sure I want him to crossbreed. They're both very correct in conformation. He has an amazing work ethic, and I can't deny he's got presence. Presence was that magic word for a quality that you couldn't quite name, something that made you pay attention. Colton was right. Blaze had it in tons. Missy had it too. And if I was being completely honest, Colton didn't lack it either. Missy will take care of the personality and speed. I don't really think we could go wrong. I didn't think about what I said next. It just popped out of my mouth, leaving me stunned. I tell you what, Johnson, if she can beat him in a quarter-mile race, we can put them together and see where it goes. His eyes flashed, and the grin I got instantly had me regretting the challenge. You've got yourself a deal, darling. He practically purred, holding out his hand. My heart thumped again as I shook his hand. It seemed to be having a ridiculous amount of trouble locating the rhythm that had carried us comfortably through 21 years of life. Perhaps this wasn't such a good idea after all. I couldn't afford to get wobbly-kneed at Colton Johnson's smile. My life was complicated enough as it was. But I also couldn't, wouldn't back down now, so I did my best to match his confidence and said, "Tomorrow afternoon at 4. Don't be late."